Can you hear me?
Yes.
Be live in about 1 minute.
443-660-7131 or listen to my show every Thursday at 3:30 p.m. on WOLB. If you don't know what to do, we can help you because we've seen a thing or two. See you soon.
It was 2 a.m. when the fire alarm woke me and my husband. Next thing I know, I was standing in my front yard watching my home grow to flame. That's when a friend of mine introduced me to the Masters Construction.
No one desires the tragedy of a house fire. But should this happen to you, we hope that you will choose the Masters Construction. Call us at 443-250-5048 or visit us at www.themasters-construction.com.
At every step, he took the time to explain what was next. Call the Masters today, 443-250-5048.
Hello, welcome to the Insurance Guru Show, where we talk about all things insurance. My name is Ramona Jones McClain, and I'm a farmer's agent at 6 Hanover Road, Reisterstown, Maryland. You can call me anytime at 443-660-7131.
Live in 3, 2, 1, whenever you're ready.
All right, DMV, this is Ramona Jones McClain, and we are here today live broadcasting from 11707 Reisterstown Road. We have a guest with us today, Mr. Robert Barron from the Insurance Commissioner's Office. He is an associate commissioner specializing in property and casualty. And guess what we are going to talk about today? A few years ago, I was riding down Liberty Heights and there were some scooters on the side of the road. I think that was the first time they had been there. And I was like, oh my goodness, where did they come from? So I did this show. This was about 3 years ago on scooters. We are doing it again to talk about, get some updates, some more information, because I spent the last 30 days downtown in the Johns Hopkins area, and I saw scooters everywhere. It was green ones, blue ones. I think there was a yellow one, not sure. But Mr. Barron, thank you. Welcome to the show.
Thank you, Ramona.
Yes.
Happy to be here.
So what is a scooter? A scooter is an upright sort of flatbed device that you can stand on that is motorized and will move you forward in any direction. It is easy to rent one. You just need to download the app. You need a driver's license or an ID, not sure which one, and it costs $1 to rent it. And then usually it's in and around 25 cents per minute after that. And when you finish, you just pretty much leave it where you went, where you going to where you went. I think that's how it goes. So the biggest issue that came up last time is I kept getting these phone calls about people in which scooters hit their vehicles. And the issue became, who's liable? Can you answer that question? That's the first question I need you to answer.
Okay. Well, so as with any liability claim, the person who's liable is the person who caused the damage, right? So scooters don't, unless they are malfunctioning or they're defective in some way, the scooters themselves don't cause an accident. It's the rider or the operator of the scooter, and the liability will be determined by what happened. So if a scooter's out on the road and the rider is operating negligently and they either crash into a parked car or they cause an accident with a moving vehicle, that operator who was negligent would be the responsible party.
Okay, so how do you file a claim against that? Or how do you, yeah.
Yeah, so, that's the thing. There's not, you don't have a scooter insurance policy, right?
No.
So you're a citizen and you're walking the streets of downtown and you've got a destination to get to and you think, I'd rather get on one of these scooters and, use that as my transportation for the next mile instead of walking it. You're assuming some risks when you do that. A lot of people think they might have some insurance coverage either under their homeowner's insurance policy or their automobile insurance policy, but that is almost certainly not the case. Your homeowner's insurance policy won't cover your liabilities arising from a scooter. The only exception to that would be the kind of scooter that's like a mobility scooter designed to assist the handicap, being used to service the resident's premises.
Right.
Scooters that you hop on the streets, that your liability is not going to be covered under your homeowner's policy. Same thing for your automobile policy. If you've got an automobile policy, it covers you when you're driving your vehicle that's insured with your automobile insurer, but it doesn't provide cover for you when you are operating a scooter that, whether it's Lime or Bird or any of the other vendors that you might pick up on the streets.
Okay, so, and those are the two we have in this area, Bird, Lyft, and Lime, is that correct?
So I've seen Lime and Bird, I know, are on the streets of Baltimore. I believe there's some other ones.
Okay,
In every jurisdiction, no matter which county you're in, the vendors might be different.
okay,
Lime and Bird are two of the bigger ones.
okay. And so there's some recommendations to operate it safely. First of all, if you are, what is the weight limit? I believe it's 200 pounds, 300 pounds.
I really couldn't tell you. We don't, we're not involved at the insurance administration
With the DOT. makes
with
that
setting
requirement.
the safety parameters. I would tell you
Right.
common sense says though, wear a helmet, wear pants,
Yes.
be careful when you're on those things. Yeah.
And I know that if you're under the age of 16, they are requiring you to wear a helmet in most municipalities. It's also stating that if it's malfunctioning, don't put it back where it can be used again, to set it aside and notify the company that it is malfunctioning. And that includes the little stand. If it won't stand up on its own, that's something that should be notified, because that's the other thing. What if it was standing and, I don't know, the hurricane came through and they fell out in the street and somebody rolled over them? Is it, and that's the other thing, is that the liability of the company if they weren't properly notified, or is it your fault because you were traveling too fast to avoid an accident? Or
Well, I think the liability for any specific accident or claim is going to be case specific. It's going to be determined by, what are the facts that happened in that particular instance. Certainly there are situations where a person might be on a scooter and doing everything they can to operate it safely and properly.
right,
Maybe they get hit by a car and the driver of the car is at fault.
right,
And then there's the opposite, where somebody's on a scooter and, is operating it either safely or negligently, and they cause an accident.
right.
Liability is always going to be case specific.
So, and just audience, if you have any questions, please call 410-481-1010. You can call into the station and ask your questions. We will be happy to answer them. So I remember when rideshare first came about, being with farmers and us being a more Western company out in California, where a lot of these things come up first. Farmers was one of the first insurers in Maryland to have the rideshare endorsement, and to sort of lay out the gaps in the insurance between turning on the app and picking someone up and participating in this new phenomenon called ride sharing. This is not necessarily ride sharing, but are there any plans from the insurance commissioner's office to sort of fill these gaps or encourage insurance companies to provide some sort of endorsement, especially for people who routinely want to use a scooter? Or one of the other things that's coming up is the e-bike.
Right. So at the insurance administration, we're regulators. So, we enforce the existing insurance laws that come out of Annapolis. We promulgate regulations to enforce those laws. But we don't set the agenda that way. And so, when it comes to ride sharing, there's a whole host of laws that have come about, and the Utility Commission has some insurance requirements for the companies that, your Ubers of the world that and Lyft that are in the ride sharing business. The scooters are different. The scooters are based in, the rules for scooter deployment are different from jurisdiction to jurisdiction. So the vendors you find in Baltimore City will be different than the ones, in Baltimore County or PG County or in other parts of the state. And each jurisdiction has its own permitting process for these companies, its own requirements for what's necessary for these companies to put their scooters on the street.
So I know that in other states, there's been not a surge, maybe a small lift in claims and crashes and pedestrian issues regarding scooters. Have we seen that at all in the state of Maryland?
We may not be the best state agency to respond to that. Maybe the various police or even the MVA, but in our files, we don't tend to see scooter
claims
related cases because they rarely involve an insurance policy that we have jurisdiction over.
I see.
Yeah.
So we don't have people, because I know one of the biggest questions that I was getting a lot is this young man just went out in front of my car, hit it, I hit the curb. Who do I file the insurance claim through? I called Lyft, and Lyft said it's the operator's fault, but then they won't release who was operating it.
Yeah, so if, kind of like if you're in an accident with your car and it's a hit and run, somebody hits you and takes
Right.
off, right? You may not know who it is. And scooters are not subject to registration, so they don't even have a license plate or a license tag on them.
Right.
So,
but this wouldn't be considered an uninsured motorist claim.
no, because you're not driving your automobile. It's not your automobile that was, so let me backtrack. So if your vehicle's parked, right, and you're hit by a scooter, or you're stopped and you're hit by a scooter, you have a property damage claim. And if you've got collision coverage, you'll have coverage for that.
Okay.
First party damage, and it would cover damage caused by a scooter, just like it would cover damage caused by somebody pushing a shopping cart, in the parking lot.
Okay, but is that going to be a collision claim, or is that?
Well, you could conceivably use your own collision or depending on the circumstances, your own comprehensive or other than collision coverage, but that wouldn't get you a claim against that at-fault person, right?
Right.
And that claim against your own policy without regard to fault. And of course, you need to be careful about that, because if the damages are minor, it might be less than your deductible. And if it's just a little bit over your deductible, you have to think about whether you want to make that claim. And, there's some attendant penalty with that as far as future rate increase.
Right.
Mm-hmm.
Right. That's what I was asking. If it goes in as a collision claim, is that something that the insurance company may consider a chargeable loss? Indeed,
they can and they will. All claims, even not at fault claims, can be used and are used
right
to
adjust
your rate.
Score.
Yes, ma'am.
I've been telling people that nobody listens to me.
Well, I've been in property and casualty world since 1985, long time.
Wow.
It was true back then, to a little bit of a lesser degree, but it's certainly true today.
Yes.
All
Okay.
claims can result in a higher premium.
So, as a property and casualty professional, you're in a situation where you're sitting at a light, I don't know, on Liberty Heights, and somebody comes out with a scooter and before you know it, the light had turned green and you accelerated right into them. What are we looking at from a insurance perspective? Because to me, it's not like, and I think part of the issue is that the scooters aren't allowed to ride on the sidewalk. They're supposed to be in the street.
Depending on the jurisdiction, they're supposed to be in the street, but it does, for example, before coming on the show today, I looked at Baltimore City's website, and their dockless rules are right there on the website. They have a whole page for it. And it basically says on the street, unless the speed limit is I think it said in excess of either 25 or 30 miles an hour. And also when it is unsafe to be on the street, they can be on the sidewalk. So
Okay.
Once again, it's one of those things where it's going to be very case specific, depends on where you are and what's going on.
I want to inform our audience as much as possible, because I don't want us to get into a situation as more and more of these show up that we're in a situation where something eventful happens that is so devastating that now somebody has to make a law. I feel like it's better for us to be proactive than it is to be reactive.
Right. So the example you were using of the scooter that darts out in front of your car and you have a collision, it's not a whole lot different really in terms of negligence and the rules of the road than if it was a pedestrian or somebody on a bicycle.
Right.
Going to be very case specific, what happened and who was responsible. There are plenty of accidents that happen with where pedestrians are injured, where it might be pedestrian error rather than the driver error.
Right.
But in all cases, if you've been involved in an accident like that, where you're operating a motor vehicle, right? And you've had an accident with somebody on a scooter or a pedestrian or a bicycle, what have you, you're going to want to try to report those things to your insurer. If the police are called, you're going to want to cooperate with the police.
Right.
And do all those things to document what happened. If you've got a video that you can utilize, or if you see that there's cameras in the area, all those kinds of things come into play.
Okay. So with all of that, and I understand from our conversation prior to the show that you have been on a scooter.
I have been. I've been on scooters. I started going on them probably 3 or 4 years ago.
Okay.
Usually when I travel to represent the insurance administration, this is mostly before the pandemic, but if I would travel to another city and for a day or two, I would frequently at the end of the day hop on a scooter and do a little ride around to see the sights. And I find them to be, as long as you're careful, you're not trying to set any speed records or doing anything dangerous, I find that they're pretty easy to operate. But you really do have to, got to get your sea legs go really slow at first. Once you get used to it, it's not that hard they're not that hard to use.
That was my issue, the balance, getting that balance, which is probably why I'll never go surfing.
Got it. I think if you're somebody who can ride a bicycle, you can probably learn to ride a scooter. You got both feet on a flat platform, but you do have to be careful. I took one tumble in Austin.
Okay.
I thought I was going down a ramp, and instead it was actually the curb, and I didn't really see that coming. I was moving very slow, so I didn't get hurt badly or anything like that. Nobody else was involved. My pride got a little wounded. Yeah, so they are great to save you some time. They're very inexpensive to use, but you do have to understand when you download those apps, There's a user agreement that most of us just check the box and we don't really read. But it's a good idea to read that so you know what kinds of responsibilities you're taking on, because in many instances, the user agreement puts liability for damage to the scooter or for at-fault accidents, on your shoulders,
Right,
not the scooter company.
right. Do you see a situation where the scooter companies will start divulging who was operating the scooter at the time of an incident?
I don't really have an answer or opinion about that. I think that would be based on, would have to be based on some legal requirement that might
Yeah,
either come from a court or from a passage of a statute, or because a lot of this is locally based rules, a jurisdiction, a county or a city could put in rules to that effect. In most of the jurisdictions, Baltimore City, I know, does their permits for the scooter companies, they're annual, right? So
right,
you see Lyft and Bird on the streets of Baltimore this year. Next year, it might be two other vendors who apply for the permits, or Lyft and Bird and somebody else. So
right.
the jurisdictions are constantly opening up the permitting process and issuing their licenses to whoever gets the bids.
Absolutely. Well, I am so happy you could be on with us today. You were very helpful in explaining how this works. I've been trying to get someone on from your office for a while to talk about these scooters and they're and the e-bikes. We don't have the e-bikes here in Baltimore yet.
I have seen a few. Downtown, I've seen a few. You don't see them in the numbers that you see the scooters in. And I know, again, from my personal experience, that one of the apps that I use has the icon where when you log in, you can select scooter or bike.
Right.
I suspect because of the fact that I don't see the bikes around, that if you click on bike, there might not be one nearby, whereas
Right.
when you click on scooter, there's almost always one pretty close.
And right, and if you download the app, it will tell you where to locate one of those devices.
Yep.
But I think that hopefully as we continue to do this, they will create what they call them bike parks, where you'll know exactly where to go, like the bus depot.
Yeah, you see those in some other cities. You'll see stands where they'll have 15 or 20 bikes lined up in a row. And, with the scooters, like you said at the start, you get on one, you go where you're going, you leave it where you're at.
Right.
Bikes, I think in some cases, in some cities, you get on one and you take it to the nearest stand or nearest approved location.
Right.
Drop it off.
Wow. Well, I want to thank you so much. This is Mr. Robert Barron. He is the Associate Commissioner at the Insurance Commissioner's Office. I hope we can have you on again to talk about some other stuff, especially after the hurricane passes over or such. I know there's going to be a lot of people who have questions about their hurricane deductible and what is currently going on with that.
We are always available to help constituents with their insurance questions, whether it be property and casualty or life and health. We've got a great website, insurance.maryland.gov.
Mm-hmm.
Contact information is on there. You can always reach out to the MIA. We're happy to help.
Absolutely. Thank you so much for being on. And just before you go, is there a number, the number where people can call the Insurance Commissioner's Office if they have questions? Is that the number I have here? The 410-468-2488?
I think that is our main line. We have an 800 number. Let me give you that number.
Okay. Yeah. Because the Insurance Commissioner is consumer driven. They are designed to assist consumers with questions or concerns and complaints with regards to their insurance policies, understanding their insurance coverage, and issues with getting their claim. And give us the number.
Yeah, 800-492-6116 is toll free anywhere in the state of Maryland.
Absolutely. Thank you so much. And we're going to keep talking about scooters. We're going to talk about where to find them here in this area. And we're going to talk about some safety protocols that you should use when using them and what you shouldn't worry about. I will be right back. I think we're going to take a station identification break. Thank you.
All right.
Yes.
Thanks so much.
Thank
Do
you.
you still need me or am I done?
Nope, you are done. I know
All
you have to
righty.
go.
It's nice to meet you, Ramona. You take care.
Thank you. We'll be doing this again.
I'll be around. You reach out to Craig anytime.
Thank you.
Okay, take care now.
Okay, so I guess we'll take a break in a couple more minutes. Let's talk about the numbers. So listen, in the last few years, especially during COVID, we had 1 in 1,000 uses of a scooter. There was an incident. Some of the main incidents included head injuries, include car crashes, include damage to property where someone was riding the scooter too fast and out of control. One of the biggest issues is the lack of understanding how to use the scooter. It's the third reason why I did not get on it, because I was in a downtown area, there was a lot of people around, and I was like, oh, I should probably do this at a time and a place where I'm more used to it. It is an issue of balance. You do need to take it slow when you get started, and you need to be able to be familiar enough with your surroundings, like Mr. Barron stated, so that you don't go over unfamiliar terrain and fall and hurt yourself. Each scooter that you get on should have a kickstand. It should have a speedometer on it so you know how fast you're going. It should also have a bell or something on it where you can say, ding, 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 I'm coming. And when you approach people, you're supposed to say, passing on the left. This is scooter decorum. In addition to that, not only should it have an alarm, but a bell on it so people can hear you. It should have an identification number on the scooter and a way for you to brake. One of the other biggest issues where people were having incidences were cut brake lines or faulty brake lines. If you in fact choose to get on a scooter, you should make sure that everything that I just stated, good brakes, identification number, a bell or horn or something to let people know that you're coming is present. These are the things that keep you safe. And everyone is recommended to wear a helmet. If you are 16 and under, you are required to wear a helmet. And if you want to go to get other regulations that are involved, you can go to the Department of Transportation for Baltimore City or Baltimore County. These are the two areas I know that they have scooters in, to look and see what is recommended. And there's some tips on there that we'll discuss when we come back on what you should do if you choose to ride a scooter. Thank you for listening. This is Ramona Jones McClain, your insurance guru, and we're going to take station identification break. Thank you.
Hey, Ramona, could you hear me? I tried to send you a text message too that you got callers on the line.
Oh, no, I didn't hear you at all.
And text messages and I tried to.
Who'd you send the text message to?
Ramona, I heard you. It sounded like your phone was vibrating when I sent.
Oh, I see.
Ramona.
I'm sorry, I see. You could,
My
okay,
brother Carlos and James.
okay. Let's get them back on as soon as we come back. Okay.
WOLB Baltimore and WERQ FM HD3 Baltimore, an Urban One radio station, minority controlled and operated and serving the African American community for over 40 years.
The views and opinions of the guest and host you hear are not necessarily those of the staff and management of Radio One, its sponsors, or advertisers.
Hello, DMV. This is Ramona Jones McClain, your insurance guru. I am a farmer's agent located at 11707 Ricerstown Road in Ricerstown, Maryland. Here, you can call me at 443-660-7131 or listen to my show every Thursday at 3:30 p.m. on WOLB. If you don't know what to do, we can help you because we've seen a thing or two. See you soon.
It was 2 a.m. when the fire alarm woke me and my husband. Next thing I know, I was standing in my front yard watching my home grow to flame. That's when a friend of mine introduced me to the Masters Construction.
No one desires the tragedy of a house fire. But should this happen to you, we hope that you will choose the Masters Construction. Call us at 443-250-5048 or visit us at www.themasters-construction.com.
At every step, he took the time to explain what was next. Call the Masters today, 443-250-5048.
Brother Carlos is first, and you're live in 3, 2, 1, whenever you're ready.
Hello, this is Ramona Jones McClain. We are back. I do want to thank our sponsor, the Masters of Construction. You can find them at www.themasters_construction.com, or you can call Mr. Carlos Levine at 443-250-5048. So I understand we have a caller, Brother Carlos.
Hey, my sister, how you doing today?
Very good. How are you?
Oh, I'm here as always by the grace. Let me just make a couple observations about the scooter situation. I see the scooters as being highly dangerous, a highly dangerous vehicle to have on the streets, although I understand their purpose. Washington, D.C. has had scooters operating on the streets for many years, and there have been many instances of people getting seriously injured or killed while riding scooters, particularly with people turning the corners. You're supposed to stop at the red light before you proceed. A lot of the cars do not stop at the red light. They just go to the red light and would take a quick glance and keep on going. And if you have a scooter or something crossing the street, then that puts them in jeopardy. So one had better have his head on a swivel for sure when you are on the streets and you have those scooters involved, as well as bicycles. So that's the first observation. I wanted to ask the insurance administrator this question is, if a deer hitting your vehicle can be covered under comprehensive insurance, and other type of incidents can be covered under comprehensive, why couldn't the scooter be covered under comprehensive? And I'm pretty sure bicycles are probably going to be covered under comprehensive as well if they get entangled with a vehicle as such.
Actually,
I don't know whether you have any.
He actually answered that question. I asked it in a different way. Actually, he indicated that under the current regulations, bicycles are covered under collision and not comprehensive, and thereby you could receive coverage for the damage to your vehicle or property under collision coverage of the vehicle. But bicycles in and of itself, the person that is operating it should be the one that's liable. The issue with the scooters is that quite frequently the person driving the scooter will get up and keep going and not stay to take accountability for the situation. And under the current laws, the scooter companies are not required to divulge who was operating it at the time of the incident. And so unless you catch the person and get their information, literally you are having to process a claim under your collision. And it's probably has something to do with an inanimate object, that rule, like the reason why deers and dogs and whatever, possums are covered, because they can't be held liable. They don't have free will or reason where you can hold them liable for the actions of their behavior. And technically,
I don't know. I hope that's in the policy language under the comprehensive and collision stipulations, because, like I say, and you know, a lot of times also, particularly I know in Washington D.C., which I'm familiar with, the scooters have been stolen. You know, they've been stolen from individuals and used by people that are engaged in other kind of activity, crimes and stuff like that.
Right.
So I understand the reason.
I do know that on the app, if something like that happens, there is a button or a notification where you can notify the company immediately to let them know that your scooter has been stolen, or that or it's been vandalized, or somebody is operating under your I guess your sign-in or whatever, and they will immediately shut the scooter down.
Okay.
So, and I don't know if that's a new feature. I don't know if that's a new feature, but I know it's something that's come up in the last couple of years.
Yeah, in the metropolitan, highly urbanized areas, the cities, as you have indicated, is something that I wouldn't participate in. Let me put it that way. You couldn't get me to ride a scooter in Baltimore City or Washington, D.C. for $1,000. You know.
Well, you know, I already said that, Brother Carlos, because I don't have the balance to get on a scooter. That's number one. And number two, to me, they need scooter parks. You know what I mean? They need something set up where people who've never done this before can get on it in a safe environment and not just get on it and jump and ride down wherever, the sidewalk or something.
Right. Like I say, brothers and sisters, keep your head on a swivel out there when you have those type vehicles involved, because anything can happen. Thank you for taking my call. Appreciate
Absolutely.
it.
Thank you. I hope to hear from you next time.
Thank you.
All right. I think we have another caller that's waiting.
Yes, Eugene.
Eugene? Hi, Eugene.
Hello, Ms. McLean.
Hi, how are you?
Yes, it is. How you doing, Ms. McLean? I'm fine, thank you. So I heard you mention something about the hurricane in Florida. So I had a question about that. But in reference to the scooter, I'm pretty much with Carlos. I'm a veteran, and I was in both Saigon and in Thailand. So I saw firsthand, you know, how the scooters are driven, how they were driven there in Southeast Asia, and it was amazing. If you ever saw it, it was like a 3-ring circus, and they would have women on the backs riding side saddle.
Oh,
and
wow!
If you can imagine being in D.C., going around DuPont Circle, and especially in Bangkok, they have a circle in downtown Bangkok, like it's a little larger than almost like Times Square in Bangkok, and it's just amazing. My mouth was wide open. I mean, just riding a taxi was scary.
You know what? I can say it really is a cultural phenomenon with regards to where we're going and how we transport ourselves. I can't say that it's not something we should venture to. I can say that it's probably not for me.
Yeah, not for me. But again, but cultural phenomenon. Thank you. I wouldn't use that expression, but now I will.
But you had a question about the hurricane.
Yeah. So, just in reference to flood insurance, how is that working when you live in a place where I mean, Florida historically, has had hurricanes since the time immemorial, right? It's probably since the beginning of time. That's why it looks the way it does as a peninsula. But again, how do those people have flood insurance? Can they get flood insurance, or are they paying a premium for flood insurance?
Okay, so to answer your first question, most people do not have it. To answer your second question, everyone can get it. Okay, now, if you know anything about the way they determine flood, they do it based on planes. What is your rating basis? This area floods all the time, all the way down to this area floods never, okay, or has never historically flooded, because with all of the changes in our land, we're going to talk about our landscaping show next month. Winterizing your garden. Part of that is telling when you're changing your landscaping, when they're building new roads, when they're creating plazas, you're changing the floodplains all the time with all of the construction. Right, the new things we're doing. So everybody can get a flood policy. In areas like Florida, most of those areas are actually required to get a flood policy.
What's across the arm of the lake. So here in Baltimore, especially I lived in northwest Baltimore, just a little bit below down Hillen Road, Argonne Avenue, Belgian Avenue, et cetera, in that area. But in that area, let's say just across the street from Northwood, going down crossing Argonne Drive, going down Hillen Road, that neighborhood gets flooded often and regular, right? So when you talk flood insurance, their flood insurance is predicated on, what you're talking about in reference to flood insurance. It changes depending on
all flood insurance
the landscape.
Is predicated on what floodplain you're in, and if you pull your there is a actually, if you give me a call, I can look it up for you to see what floodplain you are located in and how much it will cost you. In areas usually where flood policies are required, the mortgage company will usually require you to get a flood policy and allow it to be escrowed along with the rest of your insurance. Sometimes, not all the time. It's like 5 to 10% of the time. And the other thing about flood insurance,
when you purchase. And I was going to say, this is applicable when you're purchasing a home.
Yes, you can get it when you're purchasing a home. You can get it after you purchased a home. If in fact you live in an area, honestly, that has never flooded, that's when you need to get the policy, because your flood policy will be grandfathered in to whatever your previous designation was. If you live in an area that has water issues all the time, now granted, water rising is not necessarily legally considered a flood. In order for it to be a flood, you and an adjacent property, whether it is up the street, across the street, or next door, must be underwater, or what is equivalent to water, which could be considered sludge or mudslide.
Okay. Okay. So so you're saying underwater. What that to me is like, it conjures up. I live in a row home and my basement is flooded, or water's in my basement after it rains. Is that considered flooded, or is that the first floor?
No, to me that sounds like your sump pump is not working. So whenever we have a severe rain, again, it could be a landscaping issue. You could have water pooling up against your house and you need to do something,
roll back.
Right, to get the water to flow away down into the street. So that may be the issue, but your sump pump should be processing or processing their water out of the lower level. You may need to get a second sump pump. So that sounds like a backup sewer and drainage issue, not necessarily a flood.
Because again, I lived on Linwood Avenue in East Baltimore, had a sump pump. It wasn't in the basement, but it's like there was a three-step walk down to the basement door, and the sump pump was there. And anyway, I could tell you stories about. But anyway, any self-respecting homeowner has probably 1,000 stories they could tell you in reference to that. But interesting, and I always listen to your show. I don't call in, but I always definitely learn something when I'm listening to you.
Absolutely. I do appreciate you calling, though. It always makes the show interesting.
Okay, thank you very much. You have a good day.
Thank you. Thank you so much. All right. So we sort of deviated a little bit from the scooters to water issues, which we will cover in detail next month when we do our next flood show. And we'll talk about flood, especially after hurricane season passes, or in the middle of hurricane season. We'll talk about flood in detail and how that works and why you should get a policy and how soon you should get one. Right now, we are still talking about scooters. And listen, so the Department of Transportation recommends that if it's your first ride, you try a safe location and take it slow. Learn how to balance, steer, and how the scooter handles bumps in the road before accelerating. Keep 2 hands on the handlebars. And if you are on a scooter that doesn't have handlebars, get off of it. Each one should. Riders under 16 are legally required to wear a helmet. Though helmets are recommended for everyone. This is the Department of Transportation for Baltimore City. Scooters should yield to people walking. Can I say that again? Scooters should yield to people walking. Riders are safest in a bike lane or a low traffic street, riding on the right-hand side of the street in the same direction as traffic. So the rules for bikes is the same for scooters. Right-hand side of the street in the same direction as traffic. Only a major street with 30 miles per hour speed limits can scooter be ridden on the sidewalk. So 30 miles an hour plus a major street, you can ride on the sidewalk. If you are passing a person on foot, be sure to give a warning by using the bell or the horn on the scooter and say, passing on the left. That is scooter decorum. To get more information, you can email dot-community@baltimorecity.gov. How should you park a scooter? Should be parked courteously. Well, that's a little bit too much discretion, but do not block doorways or sidewalks, bus stops, driveways, but park near bike racks or on the edge of the street using the kickstand. Always leave 4 feet for people to pass walking in a wheelchair or pushing a stroller. Some of the vendors that are currently in Baltimore City are Lime, Link, and Spin. If you want to report something that you saw happen, again, you can email dot-community@baltimorecity.gov. All scooters are equipped with the GPS, and you should immediately write down the time and location of the incident. If the company does not handle the issue, then email dot-community@baltimorecity.gov. That's really important to know because a lot of people have had questions regarding what to do if this scooter does something dangerous or is doing something that is such as property damage or something that could be held liable. If in fact the company, whether it's Lyft or Lime or Link or Spin, does not deal with it, then DOT, if there are enough complaints, DOT will address the company directly and perhaps not renew their permit to operate in the city of Baltimore, like I believe they are doing so with the company Lime. Let's see. There is compliance monitoring set up, vandalism intervention, and if you in fact report something that allows them to successfully criminally prosecute someone who has vandalized a scooter, there is a reward of $10,000. If you want to review any policy updates with regards to scooters, you can go to DOT for the Baltimore, the Department of Transportation for Baltimore City. But so the goal for these scooters is to make city living more fun, transmutable, engaging, for people to get up and go out and see the sights and scenes of the city. In the process, just like they used to say motorcycles are dangerous, we need to continue to educate one another on how to properly use this tool that is available to us in many of our urban centers. Very rarely are they available in our suburban or more rural environments, probably because they don't have the structure in place and because it's better on roads where the speed limits can be lower. And in more rural and suburban areas, the speed limits tend to be easily over 45 miles an hour. And it's safer on roads where the speed limit is less than 30 miles an hour. But if you are in a situation where someone on a scooter has hit you, has caused damage, you've seen it, again, the article on the Department of Transportation indicates that you can email dot.community@baltimorecity.gov. I also recommend if you are in a situation where you are not being able to identify the liable individual, because the person who is operating the scooter, if in fact they've done something wrong, they are in fact liable. If in fact a scooter company, the vendor, is not willing or able to identify the individual who is operating the scooter, this is a situation where you can file a claim or file a complaint with the insurance commissioner, especially if you've been forced, as you heard him earlier, to put in a collision claim that becomes detrimental to your individual policy, causing your premiums to go up because you processed a collision claim. Or even if, let's just say you're with one insurance company and you had to file a collision claim, but they've decided not to surcharge you for it, but you choose to switch to another, and because it is a collision claim, it has inadvertently affected your insurance core, and the new insurance company is required, because of the nature of the claim, to charge you. It's an incident where I believe the insurance commissioner's office should be involved, and you should file a complaint to get that off of your record as an at fault or a quote unquote atypical collision claim. The more we document and file complaints regarding these situations, the better, the more it will push legislators and the decision makers to put in some legislation or rules with regards to protecting consumers against people who may recklessly or negligently ride a scooter. It's going to happen. It is happening. I've gotten several phone calls over the years about what to do and how to handle it. And I'm very happy Mr. Barron from the Insurance Commissioner's office chose to come on today to assist us in where we should go and how we should do this, along with the information from the Department of Transportation. Next week, our show is going to be on. Oh, is it COVID? Yes. We are going to have a doctor from Johns Hopkins Hospital that will be on to discuss the rumors of COVID. Now, I know what you're asking. What does that have to do with insurance? If you noticed over the last year or so, there are, whether it is commercial liability, whether it is health insurance, long-term care insurance, life insurance, there has been what is called the COVID questionnaire. There have been new questions that come out with regards to underwriting and association with COVID. There are a lot of individuals, especially including myself, that made a conscious decision not to get the fourth vaccine. Okay, I had a long conversation with this doctor a few weeks ago with regards to my husband, in which they were asking him to get the fourth vaccine. And we talked about a lot of the rumors surrounding COVID, including the newest rumor that the vaccine is giving people blood clots. We're going to talk about all the rumors with relation to COVID, what they are and are not, how true they are and are not, what is the research and the documentation regarding it. You get to call in and ask a medical professional your questions and get real answers to what you should do and how you should function. This is going to be really, really important as we move forward and we get out of this, get going to this post-pandemic scenario, how it's changing things. We did a whole show earlier this year on the changes in the insurance rates. We're going to talk about changes in health questionnaires, in life insurance questionnaires. And as we move forward, because next couple of weeks is open enrollment. If you don't have health insurance, it's time to get it. We're going to tell you how to get it, why to get it, when to get it, where to get it, what to get, okay? So we're going to start off with the rumors about COVID and go into open enrollment. Then we're going to talk about Medicare, because it's Medicare season. Okay, Medicare, then open enrollment. But you got it. Just be here or be square. Okay. And listen, if you have any questions, you can give me a call at 443-660-7131. I am Ramona Jones McClain. I am your insurance guru, and it is good to be back. See you next week.